Welcome, everybody. Sorry for the delay. Welcome back to Jury Trial Mentor. My name is John. I'm your host. I got my brother on the other line. We're having some technical issues tonight again, but hopefully we can make it through. Carl will be on his cell phone, so hope you don't mind that at all. And let me turn off my... Keep forgetting to turn off my own YouTube channel, so I'm getting feedback. Anyways, we're going to talk to you real quick. Sorry we did not go... Again, my apologies. I had two browsers open. So we're going to talk to you about the last 2 days. Sorry we didn't live stream yesterday. Carl was on all day in the morning with AM radio and then all day with Surviving the Survivor. They've been doing a great live stream with commentators discussing the case. And then today as well. So if you want some very interesting commentary with audience comments, which are pretty funny, we'll get to that in a second. I've heard rumors that Carl actually busted up laughing yesterday with the openers. So, Carl, let's get right into it. How do you think overall the case is going with the state versus Charlie Adelson?
I think it's going great for them. I think the openings worked out very good for the prosecution. I thought that they were very methodical. They did a pretty much chronological order with some subsets off of that. But overall, it was generally good enough to follow. There's a lot of minutia detail. On this case, they didn't go into all of it necessarily, but you don't necessarily have to for your opening. So Sarah Dugan, I would say, did a great job. I would say that the argument for Rashbaum, most of it was an argument. It's supposed to be a statement, but he really was arguing for the first 30 minutes or so. And then he sort of left you hanging about, well, what's your defense theory going to be? And then when he finally got to it, it was a complete laughable defense that Charlie was the one that was extorted and knew nothing about the murder until after the fact when Katie told him. So with that kind of defense theory, it's really, like I said from the get-go, he has nothing to work with. And so Rashbaum really is doing the best he can, but you have no defense, and I noticed that from his witness list. There's nothing you can really say to refute, to call witnesses to refute what the government has as witnesses. So, and then you start out with the witnesses that they brought in. I mean, a lot of those Rashbaum really didn't have much to say for, a lot of the forensic type stuff. The neighbor next door who called the police and whatnot, the medical examiner, that kind of stuff is not really anything to challenge. He doesn't dispute the fact, obviously, that Dan Markel was murdered. So what he's really trying to do is defend the Adelson. So what the trial has really turned into is him trying to defend anything against the Adelsons, which is really a tough job. What he's really turned day one into, a lot of references to Donna. People got to hear a lot about Donna, the nasty emails about the Hitler Youth, about the fact they should change the children's religion, get them baptized away from their Jewish heritage. So a lot of people got to see how nasty the matriarch of the family was towards some of the siblings, her children, and then rolling it out to Wendy being called yesterday. I thought she was maintaining a lot of composure. It seems like she'd really studied what the critical comments were about her from the previous trials, but you still can't look good when you're not going to come clean on the major heavy issues that you're being questioned on. So yesterday, I thought the longer she was on the witness stand, the worse she did. The same thing today. She really got some hard questions, and I thought that was something else I thought was good that we had talked about before, is why they really didn't go after Wendy hard on the questions when they knew that she was lying. They would only go one question deep and then move on, and it was sort of asked them more as a question mark instead of a heavy, hard-hitting question format. So what George has really done, though, is become a stronger advocate when she's questioning Wendy. Previously, like I say, she was more monotone in the way she addresses witnesses. Now she's actually raising her arms and giving more passion to her voice, having not everything so monotone. So I thought she's really showing the jury what to focus in. That's what the benefit of that is. You're not, because everything's not always the same as an attorney when you're questioning a witness. So you got to figure out a way to really sort of highlight your evidence, your witnesses that's coming forth for the jury. So I thought she's really doing a whole lot different job than she did in the previous two trials. She's really stepped it up, and I think it's really getting her credibility with the jury that way. And she also has good rapport with the witnesses, and so I think Rashbaum really doesn't have much to defend for the Adelsons. He's really sort of getting angry at times. I noticed today he's getting a little more frustrated and agitated in his voice. And that the argument he had where he basically was saying it's not fair kind of thing to the judge, and they had those long breaks. And I think it worked out though, where the evidence that Georgia wanted to get in, which was that key piece of evidence that Jeff Lacoste wanted to be able to say that Wendy had told him 5 days before the murder that Charlie had looked into hiring a hitman a year before, and in the summer 2013, but that it never happened. But that the cost was around $15,000 or $50,000, one of the two. And Jeff Lacoste said it was a chilling statement. So that was something that Rashbaum was desperately trying to keep out. The original motion in limine was partially granted. It was denied for the prosecution to do that. But the judge did say in the ruling that he would allow it for impeachment purposes. So that was what a lot of litigation today was about, had to do with whether this was a true impeachment moment or not. And Rashbaum was making the argument that he was relying on something that Georgia had told him that she wasn't going to open the door to that. So what wound up happening was Wendy had traveled 2 hours away, was heading back home apparently, and then she was subject to recall after the judge's ruling on this matter. So it really then, when she came back to testify again, it was really damaging for the defense, because she really got heated and angry at different times. But then she also became very smiley and happy and sort of lit up when they asked her about her book that she wrote, and about she was going to be called to the commencement address, I guess, for the I don't know if it's a law school or the whole university. I thought it was just for the law school, but I think Rashbaum made it out to be the whole university, or at least it wasn't clear. But in any event, she said that was like the best point of her life or something like that, or her career or something like that, which by the way was something that we found out from Jeff Lacoste through prior videos, that basically John Laurel's the one that told her not to do that because it would look bad. So John Laurel's the one that shut her down from doing that commencement address. So, but anyway, I thought she had a lot of lies. Though she deflected a lot, wouldn't admit to things. What Rashbaum was trying to do is make it sound like sort of things weren't that tense and that hostile, but from coming from the Adelsons directed towards Dan Markell. So what happened though is the divorce records came in, and I thought that was really key part to show how much Dan was actually fighting to get some justice and visitation for the boys. I think a lot of the talk among the attorneys in their arguments, and also through some of the witnesses, they said it was like very combative or words to that effect between Dan and Wendy. But I mean, Dan was being combative from his standpoint because Wendy was denying him the normal standard thing that you should do as parents, which is like let your kids be having good attention and good contact between both parents. So Dan was trying to enforce that, and then of course the issue about the marital assets that Wendy had not disclosed what she fully owned, and of course today we had Dan's attorney testify, and I thought that was really a critical piece that he brought up. The only reason he took Dan's case is because he had a legitimate complaint against Wendy for hiding assets. He had looked into it, and so I thought that really spoke to the motives for Wendy. So not only did Wendy have the great benefit of having the life she wanted in South Beach by taking Dan out, but she also was saving her possible bar license. So that's something I've been saying for a while now, is that she would have been fearful of her bar license being at least maybe not being taken away, but at least the accusation coming up, and just the accusation and also the power that Dan had at the law school, that would have been a big issue as well. So she basically was able to save her reputation and be able to move it to her family in South Florida all at the same time. So it had multiple components of benefits by having Dan erased from the picture. And of course, we had Jeff Lacoste. Jeff Lacoste, I thought, was a great witness for the state. Again, he was able to testify in a lot of good detail. I thought was critical to show the degree of calculation that there was to set him up as a fall guy. So not only was he talking about the fact that Wendy was looking at what was he doing that Friday morning to go up to Tennessee, but he also laid the fact that he was actually um, targeted for being like a fall guy by the way he was getting jerked around by Wendy. He also had said that the around the time of the first hit, around the weekend of 4th of June, that's when he was also was out of town as well. And so he thought it was curious that both the times he's out of town is when the hits were supposed to go down. So there's sort of a really eerie timeline of things that made it look like he really was the target and set up that way. And then, of course, we had June Mchinda testify. She was like pulling teeth. She was obviously biased, trying to help Charlie, and so she did not want to be there to sink his case. But she actually said enough good things about how his mannerisms changed. She came into the picture around 2016 when the bump happened and the rest happened. So she was able to testify as to how Charlie's behavior changed. And so I thought that was really critical information. And it was so obvious. A lot of times George was having to read her previous statement, and because she just would claim ignorance and lack of knowledge and that kind of stuff. So every one of these witnesses, what they did is they help establish motive for not just Charlie, but they also established motive for Wendy. So day one, there's a lot of talk about Donna having motive. And so yesterday it went from Charlie and Donna having the motive to kill Dan to today it was really focused on Wendy and Charlie having the motive. So I thought that was a really good way to develop the case. We also heard from the cop that drove by that talked about how a car just like Wendy's drove by the crime scene. The crime scene tape was marked, and the SWAT cars are there blocking the road, a couple of houses away. And I would have liked to see them actually show video or some photos of where the squad cars were parked. I've actually seen that on local news media before, so I wish they would have had something to show it rather than just have the officer describe it. But it's not going to be that big a deal. I think I think the jury gets it, and John, you can talk more about that in a second here. And then also Ryan Fitzpatrick, that friend of Charlie's, that talked about how the fact that Charlie mentioned that it's real easy to kill somebody, you just don't have to talk to the police or words to that effect. So another statement of a witness talking about something they either said or did to indicate that they were behind a killing. So and of course we had Luis Rivera. Luis Rivera was the last witness called at the end of the day here today, and he was he testified very credibly as to how the hit went down, how he was paid $37,000, and so and they all in total were paid $100,000, and he believed it came from Katie, which means it came from the Adelsons. He thought it was maybe Wendy that paid it, but he just didn't know when asked about it. So overall, you have these kind of witnesses are all building a rock solid case for the prosecution. And I thought that even if they didn't get information out about Charlie trying to hire a hitman from 2013, I thought that that's not an insurmountable issue, that they got such other strong evidence against them. And I think a lot of things is the behaviors of Charlie. I think Charlie's he looks different today than he did yesterday. Yesterday he looked like he was really drugged out and zoned out. Today I think he looks a little bit more perked up, a little bit more paying attention. He had his hand covering his face a lot of times, and it's like he didn't want people to be able to read his expressions. And so I think that his behavior is also particular with June. He was like smiling a lot. It looked like they had some kind of um, some kind of a chemistry going on there. So I thought it was a little bit bizarre there. But overall, I thought all the witnesses did some help for them, and so I'm very, very pleased the way it's worked out so far.
So the opener was delivered by Sarah Dugan, and first impressions matter when you're on a jury. I've been on 3 criminal trials as a juror, and I think just the launch was so good. She went mostly chronologically down the list, and I thought she was really impressive. Let me talk about the jury since, gosh, only about today 30 outside of media, probably 30 people like me that are just observing. And I can tell you this, I'm really impressed with this jury because they're all riveted. Even yesterday at the end, it was 5:45. I looked at my clock. It was 5:45 p.m. These jurors have been here all day, minus a couple breaks and lunch. And they're not moving. They are listening. They are riveted. During normal testimony, there's not too many people taking notes. But let me tell you what happened today, which was very insightful. So in my mind, when Lacasse was able to testify to what Wendy told him, was it Sunday or Monday, right before the murder, that, hey, I got to tell you something serious about Charlie, what he actually mentioned to me about hiring a hitman. The testimony that Jeff later described as chilling, to me, that was a big point in my mind in this in sticking it to Charlie. So what I did was at that moment, Carl, is I looked directly at the jury during all that, and here's what I noticed over the course of 30 seconds, which is heads started going down, notepads started coming up, and about 30 seconds later, every single juror had their head down. Now I can't see all the notepads, but all the ones I could see, all the notepads were out except for one juror, and that matched and comported, of course, with my opinion, which this is a huge point. What are your thoughts about that, Carl? Is that, I mean, again, they don't write down all their heads don't go down normally in this trial. And this was the first time, which I thought this testimony made a huge impact on this jury.
Right. Well, I think that's the kind of thing that it shows that the prosecution's striking gold with some of this testimony. And I suspect that none of the points that Rashbaum's bringing up really generates any interest in taking notes, does it?
Say that last part again, Carl.
Do you notice that jurors are taking notes from points that that Rashbaum brings out?
No, I haven't noticed that so much. In fact, at any given time, the notepads aren't out. But when salient point comes out, that's when the notepads come out. And that there's another one that was there. I can't remember it right offhand. It's in my notes. I'll get to it later. But there are 2 points today in which I could tell the jury was riveted. And I must say, I'm really impressed with the fact that there's not a single juror that you can tell that's he or she is just kind of not interested, checked out. Everybody is riveted by this case. Again, that's just my opinion. I could be wrong, but other people can chime in, like Katie Cool Lady. She's there in the courtroom. Check out her channel. Wish I could put it on the screen for you right now. But let's see who also is there. Another person well known, but she didn't want people to know that she's there. Mentor Lawyer was there as well today. So I must say, the damage done to Charlie has to be significant. And I think that everybody, a quick break from that point, which is Daniel Rashbaum, what people observe, what the jury observes that you guys don't all observe from the TVs that are in the courtroom, is there's really good camaraderie and rapport between the prosecution team and Dan Rashbaum. I can't say Kate, because Kate Myers, generally speaking, sits way on the far right over there, or far left, depending on where you're looking at it. But the rapport between them is really good. Very frequently, Rashbaum will come over and they just start joking. And Charlie's about, 10 feet away, but he can't hear anything. So, Carl, explain that to me. Is that normal to have that kind of very friendly? I can tell you right now, they like each other. And this is the kind of, after the trial is over, I could totally see them going out for lunch or a coffee, and just as a professional courtesy. What are your thoughts, Carl? Is that normal what we're seeing? Is that it seems like it's good for justice.
Well, I think it all depends how the attorneys conduct themselves, and as prosecutors, if they're trying to hide the ball or doing shady stuff, then obviously as a defense attorney, you don't want to be acting like you're all buddy buddy with them, and especially if you got a case where you know your client's innocent, you want to fight them tooth and nail against that kind of stuff. So there's not going to be any of that kind of banter going on. In fact, there's going to be a lot of tension in the air, and so. But I think the issue with Rashbaum is that he realizes he's got nothing to work with, and so I actually sort of feel sorry for him, and because he's got no credible defense for this case at all, and so I think what the prosecution is doing is really honing in on Wendy so much more, and so I think the other thing is what I've been saying is that the big elephant in the room, from my experience with the jury, is, and it goes whether it's in the military court martial or federal court or state court. If you have a defendant, especially the more serious the crime is, the more important it is you better have family members there, or at least somebody that looks like family members. And Charlie, from what I've seen in the camera shots, he's got nobody there. He's got nobody there to support him. And once a bump happens, they're going to see what his mom looks like, Donna. And without Donna being there and Harvey being there, and Wendy's subject to recall, so she can't be there. So it just looks so bad, and it looks like the parents have abandoned him because they know he's guilty as well. That's a message that's being routinely played out in the minds of the jury.
Well, Carl, when I was listening to Rashbaum's theory, I got really confused when he said it's an extortion upon an extortion. And then later on, I reflected, well, if that's confusing to me, is that potentially confusing to the other jurors as well?
Well, I think by him saying extortion upon an extortion, they were basically, obviously it wasn't the same parties involved in one. So I think those are two separate ones. Instead, he sort of makes it sound like they're rolled up as a package as one. So I think that he is sort of confusing that issue to a listener. But I mean, it just goes, it's just so preposterous because it was really brought out really great point by Georgia today when she was crossing Wendy. So by her not knowing until yesterday, hearing through the rumors in the courthouse that was Charlie's defense, that he was being extorted by Katie and Sigfredo, and as well as the potentially the hitman Luis Rivera. We're not sure if Luis specifically was included in that, but in any event, we don't know those kind of details, right? So in any event, to sit there and say that Charlie would put out a hit on the undercover agent once the bump happened for $5,000, yet Sigfredo wanting several $100,000, he would basically capitulate, give it up, and then basically be on the hook forever. And so it makes no sense at all. And so why wouldn't he call the police when he was being extorted like that if he had nothing to do with the murder of Dan Markel? So the only answer that makes sense is that because he was a part of it. And the other thing is that I thought that if you that was great for Georgia. She brought up the fact that by fleeing Tallahassee to leave the threat there, she actually was in a close proximity to the actual murderers. And so Charlie knew that from day one, that the murderers lived in Miami. And so she moved down there and was closer proximity. And so all the name change she did to supposedly protect her boys and stuff like that, all that was like a big ruse. And so, and Georgia brought out the fact that she had testified in two other trials against Katie, and also the one against Sigfredo, the joint trial with Katie won. And so, for her not to have known that information, that she was that they basically supposedly extorted her brother, it just made it such a laughable moment of just ridiculous defense. But like I say, Rashbaum had to go to a ridiculous level because there's nothing credible you can argue as a defense attorney.
Yeah, and then he kept saying that pieces to the puzzle, puzzle, or something like that analogy, which that caught me as a little bit strange. What about you?
Yeah, I mean you're going to say something that sounds corny, doesn't make sense because you got nothing to work with. So he basically, I think, in his mindset, thought I got to just sort of like ramble on for an hour to make it look like I'm matching the government's arguments, statements for an hour. So, like I say, he was arguing a lot of stuff without tying it all together for the first 40 minutes or so. So I thought that was you know, just consistent with my whole belief that Charlie's going down as a slam dunk.
Now, Carl, I'm going to break away to the other time today where the jury was riveted. Again, heads went down, notepads came out, was when uh, a screenshot or a picture of Wendy's maroon van was placed on the big screen, and then the officer was there to testify that he saw that van, and then the jurors were able to see that the crime scene tape was not there over on Centerville Road. It was quite a bit around. So when that came out, again, in my mind, Carl, that was okay. This is a huge piece that, as you say, Carl, it shows her doing a crime scene inspection. And when that developed, Carl, heads went down and notepads came out. That was pretty. That's a pretty damning piece of evidence, isn't it, Carl, against Wendy?
Yeah, I think that's been one of the strongest pieces of evidence against her. That what are the odds she's going to go to the crime scene? But it's a compounded issue. It keeps getting bigger of an issue because not only does she drive there, so that alone is like, wait a minute, there's something really odd about that. There's a real strong indicator of consciousness of guilt of a murder about to happen or should have happened. And then you roll that in the fact that she didn't even care about her kids. And this is something I thought was really key, and I said on Survivor, I hope the prosecutor calls the person that Dan was talking to from that private school that she had behind Dan's back enrolled the boys in on a basically a lotto system. They didn't have automatic entry, but she had to apply in this lotto wheel to try to see if they could get accepted. And only when they got accepted did she tell Dan about it. So Dan was like, "You did what? You did, why didn't you tell me? You never told me anything about this." And so he was like going, he didn't know what to think of it. So he was like, well, okay, I guess I got to look into it if we've already been accepted. So that's why he was like wanting to do an inspection of what the school is about. And so that one of the school administrators was talking to Dan on the phone when Dan got 2 bullets to the head. So um, anyway, I just thought that when Wendy said on the stand that we made the decision to enroll the boys in this school, right there, that was a lie because it wasn't a we decision. It was a her decision behind Dan's back. So little stuff like that. The prosecutors, a lot of details like that. I think they're not going to that level of detail, but if they wanted to, they could. But I think they got a strong enough case that it's not gonna matter in the end because it's like I say, it's an overwhelming slam dunk case of a conviction against Charlie.
And did you also notice, Carl, when yesterday, when Wendy was asked about her education, basically she would say the college that she graduated from, and then she had to add twice with honors or cum laude, whatever it was. Do you remember that when she actually? It wasn't good enough for the jury to know that she had a degree from Brandeis University. She had to add in, "Oh, and I graduated with honors." That just struck me as someone who's really insecure and who's really desperately trying to win over the jury. What's your thoughts on that one?
Well, that's the kind of stuff that does not win over a jury because that's not something that people would look like oh, I feel better about you as a witness. The fact that you throw that in there, I've never heard of someone talking about their background, their resume type work history or their education level to throw in that kind of stuff. I mean, that really doesn't make any difference. But she's not a trial attorney, so she wouldn't know that. But yeah, I think it's her effort to try to appear more important or more sophisticated that maybe she wouldn't do this type of thing. So
By the way, outside of the courtroom, they have this long bench. It's kind of like a church bench with no cushions on it, and that's where the witnesses would be sitting up to 3-4 hours. I think Fitzpatrick today had to wait the longest of all um, the witnesses, but Wendy was there yesterday. Wendy was there again today, and I can tell you it's very interesting how she sat next to this other woman who was right close to her, and would even occasionally have her hand on her thigh in a kind of like a support gesture. And Wendy just looked straight ahead and straight down. Lots of people would walk right by her or come out of the bathroom. She was sitting right by the bathroom, and I try to get eye contact with her, and by slowing down as I closed the bathroom door, and she was just laser focused, her head down. So um, she looked really, really nervous, which I guess anybody would be who's going to be going in front of hundreds of thousands of people on television eventually. But you could tell, to me, Carl, she just looked really, really rattled, and then it shows that she was, because in my mind, this was the worst performance of her in all the times that she's been on the stand.
Right. I think that she knows that she basically did a terrible job. Like the last two times she testified, I thought she got away with a lot. I thought, for example, she didn't get enough follow up from Georgia. She didn't get enough follow up from the defense counsel. She was, asked some generally tough questions from Lacoste, Chris Lacoste, the defense attorney for Katie. But in the end, he didn't go enough details, and so I thought he let her off pretty light. And so this time, though, I thought Georgia, yeah, she was gangbusters, going after a lot of details, and she actually accused her of being a part of the murder plan. So that was really bold for her to make. A lot of attorneys won't ask like the ultimate question, like, isn't it true you're lying because you're guilty of this, or isn't it true you committed the crime? A lot of attorneys don't ask that kind of stuff when they're cross-examining someone involved in a crime like that. So I thought that was very bold for her, and I think it works well because jurors want to see that kind of stuff. They want to see some tough questions and see how a witness withstands scrutiny. And Wendy didn't hold up, so I think that's fair to say that the jurors were picking up on that very easily.
I couldn't believe it, Carl, when she basically, in front of everybody in the jury, as a lawyer, didn't could not explain what contempt of court meant, or what are the potential ramifications if you're hit with a contempt of court charge. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you ask anybody off the street what would happen if you're found in contempt by a judge, anybody would know that for the most part. So for her to post about all this education and scholarships and whatnot, super knowledgeable on how things work in the law, and then to basically say that, well, if you lie on one thing, you're willing to lie on it, basically anything else. So even the minor stuff like that she was willing to lie about. She also got busted. I thought Georgia did a good job busting her out on lying about whether she was two-timing Jeff Lacoste or not. She asked about some dating app, something about, was it Cupid? I think it was.
Okay,
And
Cupid.
yeah, and she admitted that she was on it, but she made it sound like she was on it after she broke up with Jeff Lacoste. But then Georgia was quick to then remind her that they had downloaded her phone at the police department on the day Dan got shot. And then Rajah McCullough, of course, calls a sidebar. We don't know what they said, but when they came back, she got to ask her that, and then she knew she was busted. So then she basically said, "Well, I don't remember. Maybe there is something." So Georgia then said, "Well, so Dan did have reason to believe that you were, cheating on him, or at least looking for other dates." And she would only admit that well, he was just insecure, and then that kind of stuff. So, but she pretty much was busted for that.
Carl, real quick, take a quick sidebar of our own. Katie Kool-Aid is in there in the courtroom every day, and I've gotten to speak to her quite a bit. And she's got a YouTube channel, so I'm gonna do a quick shout out. Let me add this. Here we go. So there it is. It's Katie Cool, not two L's. Lady, check her out. She's doing videos every day, and I love her passion. I love her take on it. And again, just like myself and James, mentor lawyer, we're actually in the courtroom able to see these jurors, and it's extremely fascinating. I'm really glad I went. So, real quick, Carl, I want to switch gears to I can't say that. Ryan Fitzpatrick, who's Charlie's friend. I think the most damning thing he said was when he said that Charlie told him, quote, "You can get away with murder if you keep your mouth shut." I mean, to me, that's just such a damning statement to make to hear in the courtroom about somebody. And of course, I think at this point the jury already is getting that just about Charlie, and this comes in. It's almost like a final nail in his coffin. What are your thoughts? Is that as significant to you as a comment to hear for the jury or not?
Well, I think he's probably got some issues as well. I would say just by anybody that would befriend Charlie has some character defects, some character issues. So I think that basically what he was posting on the internet or social media, whatever, about Charlie, I guess last Tuesday or something. Rashomon was trying to score points with that, but I think it probably is the kind of stuff that Charlie would mention. And so yeah, I think all it sort of fits together as part of the pieces of the puzzle, like Rashomon was talking about. It's another piece of a puzzle. It sort of does fit in with the kind of way Charlie would talk and talk tough, and so I'm just surprised he was willing to take on Charlie that much over a supposed $2 million theft. So maybe Charlie could have whacked him too.
So a couple times now, the jury heard about this stapled cash. I mean, that's such a rare thing. First of all, who amongst us has $100 bills and all stacked together, and then on top of that, using a staple gun to put them together? Carl, you've said before that very frequently in front of jurors, it's little things. It's things that maybe the lawyers won't think about. They're thinking in terms of big pieces of the puzzle. Is this one of those examples of where sometimes some of the smaller pieces of a puzzle can really be large pieces that really solidify in a juror's mind someone's guilt or innocence?
Well, I think that just the fact that the Rashbaum's admitted that he staples his money, I think it's not as big of a signature issue. But I think it does go to show that Charlie's probably dealing with so many hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash. So the question is, where's he getting all that cash, and why is he dealing with cash? So I think the jurors are really going to pick up on that being such an odd thing, and I think that tends to make people think that he's doing illegal activity.
Let's jump to Donna. Donna's been mentioned a lot. It just seems to me like right now, Carl, this jury is really getting a full 3D picture of what this family is all about, their emotional enmeshment. What are your thoughts? Do you agree with me that the jury right now at this point, and we're only 2 days into testimony, kind of has this family's number?
Well, I think like I say, day one was a lot of focus on Donna and Charlie, and day two is and Wendy too, and now day two is a lot of focus on Charlie and Donna. And keep in mind, it's what they say and what they do. That's what's making the jury believe that Charlie did it. It's everything he said and did, everything that Donna said and did, and everything that Wendy has said and done. So you look at the actions and the words, and those kind of things are all lining up for all three, and that's what's going to help the jury believe that this was part of a family hit.
Katie Kool-Lady says the jury consultants were not great, and Rashbaum is just embarrassingly bad to the point I feel sorry for him. Let's talk about the first part, the jury consultants. You've said earlier that you think they've paid upwards of Charlie paid upwards of maybe $500,000. Do you think that was money well invested?
I really think it's closer to $1 million. So no, I think that having lawyers coming and going from the jury room, he had two or three attorneys that were from New York City, and then you have some kind of consultant guy as well that's not an attorney as a part of the team. So I thought that was really bizarre. I just don't recommend it in criminal trials, and I think really what that would have been a good time for is the attorney to develop a rapport with the jury. You can ask them questions. You can sort of build a chemistry with him. So think about it. Rashbaum has no chemistry built up before he started his opening statement, and so they didn't really know how he comes across. And so you're trying to get credibility with a jury, and they've never heard you talk before, and so it just left him really at a disadvantage. But like I say, in the end, it doesn't matter because you don't have any facts to defend your client.
Carolyn says Rivera's testimony was powerful. Greetings from Australia. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, his was pretty just straightforward. It's all just straight facts, and I think he didn't have some of the memory issues he had, like maybe in the KD2 trial, and so he hasn't been fully cross-examined yet by defense. That's going to start out next Monday here, but it's not going to be something it really needs to attack him on normally, but because he's going to say there was an extortion racket. Is he going to accuse this guy of extorting money out of Charlie? I mean, it just seems like if they really want money out of Charlie, just go to Charlie's house and do a burglary or robbery right there.
Totally agree.
Forget about why would you drive all the way to Tallahassee if you could just bump, just do a hit on Charlie himself.
Roxanne read my mind because this was going to be my next point to talk to you about, Carl. She says the wiretaps haven't been presented yet. That'll get the jury's attention.
Yeah, what's going to show again, Donna, the Donna Harvey angle of it. The Donna Charlie angle of it. And so I was thinking today, it's like, well, how many hours are there of those wiretaps? And I really think that if they just played the first day of the bump, and maybe the next day after that, you really don't need all the rest of it because it's just so damning.
So a couple of times today, Carl, and I only noticed a few times where Charlie was actually smiling with glee, and that was when Lacoste was being grilled, and then the second one was when Ryan Fitzpatrick was being grilled. Those are the only two times I saw Charlie really animated, leaning forward and almost breaking a smile. Is that because he thought, yeah, man, I'm getting some gains on these guys?
Yeah, I mean, he's looking for anything that makes him think that he's, it's a battle of evidence, and maybe he's going to come out on top. But who knows what Rashbaum's told about his success or whatnot. But I think he's probably told him. I suspect he would have told him, like, look, we don't have a whole lot to work with here. So why he wouldn't flip? It's his choice, his constitutional right to make the evidence be presented by the state beyond a reasonable doubt. So I think that I think once he goes to prison and if both his parents die before he does, I think that's when he's going to realize, there's no way I'm going to let Wendy come out unscathed from this, and I'm gonna pay the price.
So I think it was pretty damaging against Wendy with the testimony about the denial of visitation. And remember when she first answered it, she's like, "Oh, there's no problem. They can see them whenever they want to," which we know, of course, is not the case. There was one stretch, and I wish this would have been brought out, but it wasn't. That there was one stretch where Ruth, Phil, and the rest of the Markells in Canada weren't able to see the boys for 6 years, a 6-year gap. But she did bring out, how about last 5 years? How many times? And I'm hoping and I'm guessing that the jury is picking up on that, going, wow, that's some Mother of the Year award you'll get for being a roadblock to these kids. And also, Carl, real quick, since I just thought of it, when that a letter leaked that Ruth was inquiring about, hey, what's going to happen to the kids for that short term if Wendy's arrested, I thought that went really badly for Wendy, because Wendy kept sticking to the point of, well, I don't want them with foster kids. With foster parents. But I thought Georgia covered that really well to explain, no, that was only for a short time. Again, I think it just made Wendy look really hostile and really vindictive and not putting her kids' best interests first.
Right. I don't think, because the Ruth and Phil are in the room there, because witnesses are sequestered, they can't now call them to rebut what Wendy testified to as to the denial of visitations. So, but like I say, I think there's just so much evidence here against them that it's just probably going to be overkill. But as far as her demeanor goes, yeah, absolutely. She looked like she was lying about it. She was so fixated on the fact that that she was setting him up for this Jewish foster service, which was only enough, basically a day or two, to allow um, the grandmother to come down, Ruth Markel, to come down and catch a flight out of Toronto. So it was just like a day or two that they'd be in foster service in the event, only in the event that Wendy got arrested. So it's just such a fabricated excuse. So yeah, I think the jury would see right through that.
Pat asks, is Georgia going hard at Wendy because she knows what's coming out of the can when Katie takes the stand?
Um, let me see that. Is Georgia going hard at Wendy because she knows what's? Yeah, I don't quite know what you mean by that, Pat. Sorry. I guess you're saying I think she's going out hard after Wendy because um, the she realizes that the more you bring down the whole family, that this was a family job, the more likely Charlie's to get convicted.
The society page, which I recommend everybody go, some world class entertaining videos on this case, is says Wendy is hostile and vindictive. She can't hide it. I agree 100%. Um, Carl, let's see here. Let's talk real quick again about the fact that I kept looking the last 2 days for Charlie's support squad. You know, he has such a close family. Where are they in the courtroom? Obviously, Wendy can't stay there, as you described, but there's nothing that's keeping Donna and Harvey from attending that trial, or one of Charlie's many past girlfriends, or I guess my first thing is a statement, which is I've been on jury. We do notice those things. And you're right, Carl. When they post in the next few days, past this weekend, pictures of Donna from the bump or videos from Donna on the bump, they're going to know what she looks like, and they're going to look out in the galley, and they're not going to see her there. I know you already touched this a little bit earlier. Can you again share, though? I think that's going to be a very damaging fact, the fact that his own parents, I mean, if they're all innocent, why aren't the parents there?
Yeah, I mean it's I think I've said enough on that, but it's pretty much the elephant in the room, and I think jurors are going to be constantly thinking about that. You know, not every minute or every half hour, but I think coming and going and from their mind during the day is that he's got zero family, and especially the more they talk about the family, the more it's obvious that they're not there.
WWS, for both of you, have your thoughts on how close we are to indicting other co-conspirators been affected by what you've seen so far this week?
I think that I think if they don't do something to arrest them very soon, I think my guess if they don't do them both the same time, I would hope they'd arrest them all at the same time. But if they don't, then I think that they will arrest them probably Donna first, and then Wendy after that. And I think that if they are not aggressive enough, then I would say that maybe wait till Charlie's willing to flip on Wendy, and so that would mean both parents are dead. So, but the other issue though is what I'd be concerned about as a prosecutor is, I think there's Charlie. Charlie has no idea what he's going to face in prison. Okay, some folks say, well, he's going to be in protective custody. Protective custody. I mean, there was a Jewish guy that was killed in Ohio a couple years ago in a federal custody, which has a lot less danger and a lot less gang activity and whatnot. So I think with the Aryan Nation down there, Charlie coming in there as some sophisticated, educated medical person of sorts with a doctor degree behind his name. I mean, he's going to be really looking at some nasty stuff, and I don't think he mentally can handle being in isolation, being in a protective custody cell. He's going to want to be out there, even if it means extortions and threats and whatnot. I think he's right. He'd rather die living in freedom and being able to talk to people nonstop than being more in isolation mode.
Phoebe Beach asks or says Wendy hasn't even read Charlie's indictment. Really?
Yeah, I think that maybe she hasn't. I mean, I think as a lawyer, you'd want to read it. At least you'd know about it. Um, but but I think with Wendy, I mean, if you stop to think about how when Jeff Lacoste confronted her about the fact that she supposedly was seeing other men at the time they're dating, and she curled up in a fetal ball position and was crying, then I think that maybe she really can't even handle that. So that's the other thing I was thinking. So yeah, as a lawyer, wouldn't you talk to your sister about it? Wouldn't you, want to find out what her thoughts are, even if it's through third parties or whatnot. So yeah, I don't know what to make exactly on that, but yeah, either way, it doesn't sound credible.
Sunshine asks, is Mac Bonwa going to testify?
Well, I don't think they have to call her, but they might do it just to fill in the gap because the defense theory is that she's the one that planned all this. So I think if she gets on the stand and talks about how she got set up with all this ability to live the luxury lifestyle, then I think that I think a jury's going to connect with that, and I think also, like I say, the connection with Junam Chinda being seduced by Charlie's wealth and fancy house and pool and all that kind of stuff. I think it just really makes these girls get you know duped into this kind of relationship with Charlie and be willing to do his beck and call.
JB Christine says, I pray Katie comes clean about Charlie and Wendy.
Yeah, I think she's going to be really eager to do that. I think she's going to come across as credible because I mean, like prosecutors say, sometimes to prosecute the devil, you got to bring out and put on the witness stand the demons from hell. So if she's really had a change of heart, really has reflection on her life, and she's really seeking to live a decent, honorable life and seeking forgiveness and redemption, then this is your chance if the state calls you. So I wouldn't be afraid of it if I was a prosecutor. I would just make sure that she's telling the truth and you got some concrete details to bring out. But also, I think because of the completeness as a prosecutor, you don't want to have like a big, huge gap in the evidence of key people. So no matter what she has as her baggage in the past, I would embrace it as long as I got the truth out of her now.
Agnello asks, is Sigfredo testifying?
That's a great question, Anello. I don't think this is going to happen because Sigfredo is still not been deposed. So I don't think anybody's ever interviewed him from the defense or the prosecution. I think they just transport him in case he realizes, hey, maybe this is my best chance of freedom. I mean, if you stop to think about it, he's going to be life without parole. This is his opportunity, especially if they're not going to prosecute any other Adelsons. This is his chance to flip and say what he knows, and he could maybe get his sentence go from life without parole to maybe 20 to 30 years. So in any event.
The next two comments are about Georgia. Carrie B says, I liked when Georgia gets passionate and pounds the lectern a bit. It really drives the point home to the jury.
Yeah, I think it's I think as an attorney, if you don't have passion and fire in your belly and you don't talk with conviction in your voice, then the other side has an advantage. I mean, I think that was maybe part of the reason that Rashbaum had the judge reconsidering that ruling and ruling his way because he was trying to point the finger at Georgia, and Georgia was not talking with any passion or didn't defend herself with any kind of conviction. I thought she made a statement, but it was just sort of a monotone statement. So I think against a judge, it's not as critical. But if you want to get a good ruling from a judge, I think it's important to be firm and strong in your voice and have the proper inflections and whatnot, and have some hand gestures right when you're trying to convince somebody of something. So I think that Georgia, in front of, I mean, especially against Wendy, I mean, she's really being sort of like animated and very much like somebody said, pounding the lectern. So I think that's the kind of stuff you got to do to really. It also intimidates a witness. If a witness knows that you're like on top of them and you're just going to nail them, and you know their story better than they do, and you know every lie that they're saying, and you're going to call them out on it, they start mentally basically surrendering, and they start just wanting to get it over with, and you sort of get more and more truth out of them and admissions. And just like the prime example is with that Cupid comment. When she mentioned that we downloaded your phone, what did that do? Look at it caused to cause a delay, I think, more than anything. Look what Rushbaum did. Right away called for a sidebar. He wanted Wendy to think about it because he knew Wendy's like going to really get wrapped around the axle with her line on this. So in the end, what did it do? It forced a capitulation out of Wendy. So a lot of it had to do with her having that intimidating style of, look, I got something else on you if you think you're going to lie out of this one. So that does it does carry the day.
KCL says, I agree with you, Carl, that Georgia is doing better and getting more expressive. Today, she had a lot of difficult witnesses, and I think she's doing very good, or doing so good.
Yeah, KCL, I think, I mean, especially, I mean, if you got a murder case and you just don't talk like you got any conviction or passion, the jury's